25 to go, and we'll see it better in the overhead. Philipsen jumps, takes the shortest line through the S-bend, but then keeps going to the barriers rather than going straight. Wins the stage. Van Aert's had to stop his sprint, but he wasn't so sure afterwards as his partner showed him the replay on her phone, and then he's seeing the overhead, and here it is. Van Aert launches here because he's trying to jump the inside, the open space, to get the quickest line through that bend, and there's space there. And Philipsen starts his sprint a little bit later. Starts about here, he's launched, he looks down, he sees Van Aert is coming, and he, with them basically remaining about this position level, neither gaining too much on the other, he then sprints towards the white dash line and the barriers, although there is a bend coming up. And you see here, in fact, and this was obscured a little bit, Van Aert actually, and he said afterwards, he has to put his elbow out to stop Philipsen pushing him all the way into the barriers. And Philipsen said, through the bend, I'm going my fastest line, but then the fastest line here is the dash line. You stay straight and you actually open the space back up because the bend is finished now, and that's the fastest line, going outside apex and then straightening up. But he actually goes back towards the barriers so hard that he almost crashes himself because I think he was trying to stop Wout coming up the inside. And there was a long time of deliberation, with Pogacar coming over to congratulate his former teammate, but Philipsen, with the time elapsing, becoming more and more unsure, saying, I was trying to go the quickest line through the S-bend. And then another sort of shot shows, they're watching a video because it's on landscape here, I went through like this, so pretty amazing scenes, and that's a great photo from Pauline Ballet. What do you think down below? Should it have been a relegation? I mean, it doesn't matter for Van Aert because Powerhouse is the winner if Philipsen gets relegated. He even gets called to the principal's office, which is never a good sign, and the tension builds among the spectators, but eventually he emerges with the win intact. I think the bend saved him. The rules are so unclear, the enforcement is so inconsistent, and then when you add bends into the mix and he's going towards the apex, the commissaires just decided they couldn't overturn the result. We'll have another sprint tomorrow on a moto circuit, so something a little bit different. Make sure you subscribe down below to see the recap at that stage then. Till then, ciao. Deep. He's on Groeneweggen's wheel near Coquard. Welsford's being brought up on the left-hand side, but he did too many efforts and got left in the wind, and that was kind of his sprint over already with 600, 700 meters to go, and Van der Poel launches at 650. And unlike the other stages, this wasn't perfect timing from Alpecin. But the problem for the other teams is, Groenewegen gets dropped off here. There's no other leadouts left. There's no Van Poppel to bring Meus up the right-hand side quickly as Van der Poel dies on his run and leaves Philipsen a little bit too early. And you see Binny on Meus' wheel. Pedersen makes a big mistake here. You see he's on Philipsen's wheel. He goes and undercuts him. You'll see it better in the long extended overhead. Undercuts him to the other side. But with MVDP moving over to the right, as we look at it, this opens up the space for Cav. And just like in UAE Tour last year, he launches early. Problem is, I don't know if this bump here, as he launches, messed up his gears or what happened there. Certainly he didn't expect that bump, but he comes with speed, real top-end speed. Binny goes for his wheel. Philipsen shuts him off to the right-hand side and then comes back out of the wheel to win his third sprint stage in a row. No one else had a look in. Here's the overhead, though, because we've got to talk about that Philipsen move, another one, third stage in a row. But you see, Pedersen came under Philipsen. MVDP moved to the left. That's Pedersen's sprint over. He basically boxed himself in. Of course, Philipsen's not going to yield Van der Poel's wheel, but Cav launches here, and Philipsen sees him. Binny's already getting himself up to speed, sprinting straight. Philipsen is like, well, it's too early for me to jump straight in the wind, and he jumps diagonally across and just goes straight for Cav's wheel. And this is where it's like, he deviates, everyone's sprinting, and he does basically, Binny either has to brake or stop pedaling, or he gets chopped and crashes into barriers or has his front wheel obliterated. So yeah, he made a business decision, Binny. Not much more he could do. Philipsen wasn't relegated by the letter of the law. Of course, it's an obvious relegation, but the comment says just don't have the cojones to relegate anyone if there's no crash and the guy wins the stage. It's a lot easier, like they did the other day. Oh, relegate Van der Poel because he barged Binny, but he didn't win the stage, so it doesn't really affect anything. Or relegate Schielmoser when, like, who cares? It didn't change anything.
Has fired Jasper Philipsen up at the front. Little bit of a sprint. I don't know what's going on here.
He's closing the gap. He's saying, I'm done with this. Not very... Whoa, this is not looking good. Pretty sure the commissaires would have a word to say about that. No, they've sent riders home for this type of behavior. If you remember the incident with Tony Martin and Luc Rowe in the Tour de France.
There's no bumping and barging going on, but there's definitely a little bit of movement left and right. Now another right, and it's Fred Wright who kicks away. But
themselves before too late. He's on Van Aert's wheel, who takes Philipsen's wheel off De Lee. De Lee opens up his sprint really early, as does Van Aert with 250 metres to go. Philipsen, though, comes out of Van der Poel's wheel, looks like he's going to win, but Groenewegen with the smooth sprint on the right-hand side. Look at where he sprints into the wheel of De Lee, gets the perfect run, the perfect slipstream, because he's jumping early to the clear space left, whilst Philipsen, he's reacting to the sprint of Van Aert, and Philipsen gets relegated, rightly so. Okay, he creates space a little bit by moving Van Aert first movement here, because he's trying to get around his lead-up man, Van der Poel. Fair enough, that's sprinting side by side, and Van Aert's still got enough space. But then he can go straight here. He's got space to his left. He can just go in a straight line. But Philipsen decides to keep moving across Van Aert to the barriers. And ironically, that even costs him crossing the line first, spending that energy off balance when you see how close this sprint eventually was. Cost him crossing the line first because he's more focused on trying to close Van Aert, maybe it's just to force a habit, than just sprinting in a straight line to the finish as fast as possible. And Dylan Groenewegen in that big gear takes the W. Philipsen very upset at the finish, but only got himself to blame. Jasper, the disaster, back. Groenewegen taking the big win. Philipsen eventually relegated by the commissaires. Biniam second, then Gaviria, Bauhaus, De Lee, Van Aert, De Mark, Christophe, and Pascal Ackermann. Barriers, Gaviria on the wheel of Bini. Bini decides to try and squeeze up the barriers, but the barriers actually kick out. Let's have a look at it. So Philipsen thinks he's going to win this easily. He's got De Mark absolutely beat. He looks across to him. Problem is he's sprinting or still mid-sprint, looks across, and then, you know, like when you're driving or riding, if you look to your left shoulder, you then veer a little bit to your right, and that's what happens, and he nearly chops Biniam's front wheel, and Bini has to quickly course correct to avoid getting chopped. And then also the barriers came out, the feet of them a little bit more, the sponsor hoarding started, but actually Bini nearly got chopped by Philipsen moving right swiftly when he looked over his shoulder. So I guess